All right, good evening. Welcome to the May 19th, 2026 version of Parks and Public Works. I'm Chairperson Kat Cotton. In attendance are council members Dan Murray and Brian Holloway. We also have City Attorney Burke and Mayor Mayhew, Interim Clerk Rebecca Solom. And Jimmy Betts is doing IT for us. So welcome. We have a little audience out here tonight, which we love. I'm calling the meeting to order. We've done our roll call. First item on the agenda is agenda approval. However, I'm going to make an amendment to this as we do not have minutes for Parks and Public Works from May 4th. We inadvertently got the community development minutes. So we'll wait for those other minutes at our next meeting. So next coming up is public comment.
So, wait a minute. So we got to
approving-
approve the agenda.
Sorry.
So motion to approve the agenda with the removal of minutes
Yes,
as presented.
that's right. I forgot to say,
Okay.
did you guys have any?
If you
additions?
motion that, I second it. Are you okay? All right,
so
now at least
moved.
the record is straight.
Thank you for keeping me in line.
That's all
Councilmember
right.
Holloway. All right. So, well, I'm just so excited that we're going to have public comment. Anyway, public comment, we will be taking here. There is going to be an item for discussion. And at the time we have the discussion, and this is the only item, we will be accepting public comment on the best moratorium draft ordinance. But if there's anybody, and I believe there is someone, that has a comment not regarding the best issue. And are you Stacy Stam? Okay, very good. So we would ask that you introduce yourself, state your city of residence, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I don't know if we have our little light will.
We won't get close to it.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I'm not here about anything
Then
exciting.
feel free to say
yeah.
what's on your mind.
So I'm Stacy Stam. I live in Snoqualmie. I use Park Street a lot, and I've noticed that it seems like it's had a lot of increase in bicycle usage, which is super awesome. But there's currently a lot of conflict between cars and bikes and kids and families and the sidewalk. And I'm just noticing that there's a lot of, like I said, conflict between that. And I can't find anything in the comprehensive plan or in the rec plans that is explicitly stating there's planning around Park Street. And so I kind of wanted to come here to both like a little bit highlight it and ask if there's something going on or if there's anything I can be involved in, just because it seems like it should be a safe route to school. And when you have the access from like North Bend and Snoqualmie Valley Trail to downtown Snoqualmie, it feels like it should be a place that you guys are working on. So I wanted to first start and see if you're working on it. And if not, I will go gung-ho about it. But I wanted to, bring it up first.
Stacey, I'm going to ask a question, which we don't usually do, but my question is to get a little more specifics. Is it in regards to pedestrians and bikers sharing the sidewalk? Or is this in regards to bikes on the street?
I would say it's all of the above. So currently there are families and children who are not uncomfortable on the street, and so they are on the sidewalks. And so there's a conflict between sidewalk and pedestrians and those cyclists. None of this is like, conflict is a strong term, but it is like, no one's like yelling at each other.
Right.
And then there is also a pretty heavy cyclist usage of not, I don't know what you would call it, like not the most confident cyclists. And so we're seeing not necessarily cyclists on the road. I'm seeing that aren't used to being on the road with cars, so they're uncomfortable with it. And so it's just kind of like, we've got those 3 uses, and right now there's only 2 places for them to be. And it feels like there's opportunities to improve it.
Yes. And we can not only here, but we can also address it in public safety.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it feels like a Parks and Public Work to me. So that's why I'm
meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but we'll bring that forward and see what our staff can find out for us.
Sweet. That would be great.
Thank you, Stacey.
Cool. Thank
All
you.
right.
That was it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other public comment for other items? With that being said, we will then, next item is agenda bills, which we have none. And up next is discussion. And under discussion, we have best moratorium draft ordinance. And the ordinance is number 1322, and we have gotten a what we call a red line version, which is in with some changes that were made by council at the last meeting. And so I'll open up the topic for discussion with council members. Or do you prefer to have a discussion first, or would you like to hear public comment first?
Let's hear public.
I think public comment first.
All right, then if there's anybody that would like to have another 3 minutes to have some discussion, you're more than welcome to come on up to the podium. No? Okay. Can we scroll through it? Well, I'm not sure we can answer questions. It's more just a, you can make a comment. How about that? Yeah, yeah. If you don't mind coming up to the podium and stating your name and city of residence.
Good evening. I'm Sydney Savara, and I live on Snoqualmie Ridge. And I read through the moratorium thing, and my comment is that I was wondering, it looks like it applies to things within the city of Snoqualmie. I was under the impression that the best proposed land is not in the city of Snoqualmie, but rather in King County. So my comment was that I'm just wondering about the applicability of the issue that we're concerned about, and whether drawing a moratorium for a King County rather than city of Snoqualmie location. Just kind of wondering about that. My comment is I'm wondering about the applicability of that. I understand that there is a component of the plan, the substation, that is in the city of Snoqualmie, and that Snoqualmie would have jurisdiction over that. I'm kind of confused just about why this says just within the city of Snoqualmie. So that's kind of my disorganized comment. Thank you.
And we might get to that in discussion. So,
Thank you.
okay. Any other comments? All right. Gentlemen, folks. You would like to, yes, Councilor.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So I'm glad we had an opportunity to take a look more fully at the draft ordinance since our last meeting. I know members of the community have also had an opportunity to review, and I've heard some feedback related to it then. So a couple of things I'll kind of outline, and our city attorney can keep me straight on some of these kind of topics as well. But the moratorium, as I see it, right, applies to the city of Snoqualmie, because that's where the Snoqualmie City Council, that's what we have the ability to impact, right? King County does its own thing. That's its own set of rules. So we focus on what we have the ability to regulate. You know, as battery energy storage systems are, as a topic is kind of making its way around King County, a lot of municipalities have wanted to weigh in, right, on the issue at large, right? This is an emerging land use, an emerging kind of technology that's coming up kind of again and again. So when kind of new things come up to cities, right? Cities often say, hold on, let's pause. Let's take a minute to assess our own code. Does this fit within our own zoning, things of that nature, right? Taking a pause to understand all of the risks, all of the kind of pros and the cons and all of that. And I think another thing that it does is that it allows for due process, right? There's a public hearing feature within the ordinance where within 60 days of adoption, council and the city has to come, I believe, like develop a work plan of sorts, right? That walks through, okay, what will the city do to prepare its code for potential battery energy storage systems kind of down the road. Another thing that, I'm kind of taking off of this is it, as a formal legislative act, it puts certainly Snoqualmie on the record. It documents a municipal action, right, related to battery energy storage systems. We've heard a lot of concern from residents on a whole host of topics, from environmental issues to public safety, land use, emergency management, and evacuation. These are all things that pressing pause allows a city to take a look at, right? So those are just some initial thoughts, and I hope that kind of helps maybe with some clarification. And I know we'll have some initial discussions on, if there are any amendments or additions or, revisions that we may want to have. But before we got into that potential conversation, I wanted to just offer some of those thoughts and kind of hopefully set the table there.
I also have some comments regarding things. The concern, obviously, which we all have, the BESS facilities do require necessary changes to city infrastructure to address potential industrial scale construction, maintenance of that infrastructure, and the impacts on the city, including costs and funding sources for things, are certainly going to be of concern as well. As well as infrastructure additions or amendments to contracts related to any BESS. And as Councilmember Murphy already brought up, the other committees, various committees where, as things are appropriate, also are bringing up concerns regarding infrastructure required for safety and emergency responses, evacuation requirements, changes to city compliance with state regulations, such as the GMA and the Growth Management Act, if BESS were to be sited near or in previously identified urban growth areas. Proposed code amendments and estimated costs and funding to, do all these studies and such, where is this going to come from? Where, what will we be able to do to have impact at the various points for bringing comment forward during SEPA reviews on the county level and all of that. So there's a lot more towards just a, kind of broad moratorium that's kind of vague and such, but we need to be very precise in our wording of not only just new BESS, but any BESS, whether it's currently in potential, pre-existence or, other phases as well. So these are definitely things that I would like to have a chance to, have our council discuss even further. Councilmember Holloway, any comments?
I'm not sure we answered your question. So let me take a stab at that. You partially did. Totally correct. The project that's out there right now is within King County, and city council has no jurisdiction directly in regards to that. The GMA, which we've talked about, is an act requiring planning, but does not override existing zoning or other regulations that are in place. It requires that we do the planning for growth. Okay, but it can't override. We get in trouble if our zoning contradicts with our GMA activities, but we can't impose our GMA planning on other entities, not till we annex and pull the property inside. Okay, so need to get around that conversation a little bit. But what exactly this does, at least in part, further states the position of the city that we have concerns about the BEST project. We further, and we can only express within our jurisdiction, so we have concern about BEST facilities in general, whether they're inside or outside. What we need to do in regards to those, we need time to do due consideration, do that planning up front of what were to happen if we were really city to get a BEST facility inside. Okay. Like with many things, we can't just say nowhere in the city. If it's a legal use, we have to allow it. There are ways around of allowing it in particular places, but that's really beyond this activity. But if there was a BEST facility inside the city, we'd go through all that activity. But so as far as a moratorium of BEST activities inside the city, none on the horizon. Okay, so it really, in that vein, it doesn't do much. However, in the vein of stating to the project outside in King County, it further states we have concerns. And these are those concerns, and we do want them addressed as part of the process that King County goes through. We have done at least one letter stating those. We will do, there are probably at this stage going to be multiple letters to go to the King County reviewer of the permit to do clearing and also to do for the site of what those concerns are, and hopefully they will address those as part of the King County activity. What did I miss? I rambled a little bit.
No, I think you hit the major notes there. I think
Yes.
I think another thing, and as Councilmember Holloway pointed out, in terms of sending a signal and position to King County or other developers or other things that I think kind of come across this, I think this serves as a way for the city, obviously, to express concerns using kind of its like legislative function, in addition to the letters that we have written and will be writing for the SEPA process. So I think there's that. I think as other communities, both here in Washington, but around the country, have had energy storage facilities either come into their city limits or in similar like county areas right outside cities, a city moratorium has often been part of a playbook, right, of showing concern that a city has over this, right? And again, it signals to King County and others that concern, in addition to other ways that we're doing that. So as Councilmember Holloway mentioned, the Cascadia BEST, obviously in unincorporated King County, we don't have the ability to do moratorium in unincorporated King County. But this is, in my view, a very important piece of the city showing its concern for the project, right? In addition to, and it's going to be kind of a body of concern, right? In addition to some of the other ways in which we've done it. The other thing I will mention, and I think this bears repeating as well, we've heard from our residents on this subject, and I think one a lot of residents asking for a moratorium to kind of, put us in, add to like our kind of package of concern to King County. And that's important too, right? We've been very fortunate to have residents who have done a lot of hours of research and organizing and just getting their arms around some of these like arcane policies, right? And they've been enormously helpful. I know personally to me, right? And to others, right? So I think this is one of, I think, a couple of different tools in our toolkit as it relates to expressing some of this opposition and this concern around around storage systems like within our city, and gives a due process, right, for how we kind of go around and kind of build the regulatory framework for something like this.
Can,
Councilmember Holloway.
can we get into discussions on the moratorium write-up that we do have and possible revisions, additions for consideration? Again, I don't expect us to do that out of this committee, and more importantly, this has been introduced at the council level, so that is the item of record. So we'll need to take recommendations back to council and have those motioned at council and added in, but at least I would like to have discussion of what we kind of think ought to be some of those things we'd like to add then.
And I'm going to add in, as Councilmember Murphy touched on, we've had our residents and community groups do extensive research on things. And since we've also had legal services, with some specialized backgrounds, also bringing things forward, I would like to see us merge the two, the suggestions from the community group. And I would like to see our legal counsel review this and see if this is something we can bring forward to council.
Yeah, except I have changes from there.
To just get a gist of, it's a school one here, sorry.
So there's a bullet. Section 1, I guess paragraph 3, there are 2 bullets added in there. The final bullet, again, just because the county does something in unincorporated King County that is contrary to our comp plan or GMA stated goals, doesn't mean our plan is now invalid. It goes through periodic update as stated. So I'm not sure about levying them for costs we're not out of compliance with GMA. We're still in compliance with GMA. We have a plan. Okay. We will need to revise that plan at some stage, and it may or may not take into consideration activity depending on where this all comes out. But that's a later discussion, and I think it confuses the issue if we try to put that now in to say, and you need to fund this to become compliant with GMA. Well, that's a $0 activity. We are by definition in compliance with GMA. So at least that bullet, I don't see as I'm interested in incorporating. It's just the weirdness of municipal law versus contract law or whatever. I would like to, on the 4th bullet where they say necessary changes to city infrastructure to address potential industrial site construction, maintenance, emergency response to best cited within 5 miles of the city, and evacuation requirements with estimated costs of and funding sources for same. One, I'd like to shorten that just to say best projects, wherever they may be. If they affect the city, we should have some say in it. But I would like to split out evacuation and public safety and funding sources as its own set of bullets.
Mhm.
That's probably not only just stepping out your door and looking at a big old battery, but also just if there's an incident, what are we gonna do?
And how are we gonna do it?
Then how are we gonna do it? So we need a plan. We need, well, there's gonna be training. Again, not saying this is a done deal. I'm just saying, what if? We'll need training for the firefighters and maybe additional equipments to handle the um hazardous gases and whatnot that get evolved as one of these runaway events. And thereafter, the site becomes contaminated after that.
Yeah. Yes, Councilmember Murphy.
So I concur with all that. I'd say the one thing I'm wondering if we can maybe work some language around. I think on the GMA bullet, the estimated cost of and funding sources for seems to be the sticking point. And I think it's a little bit of a sticking point for me as well, where I would like to see as we're putting the work plan together, less so about the costs and funding sources with respect to compliance, but perhaps an impact as it relates to the comp plan through the GMA, where if a best facility were to be cited, how would that have that impact, right, with respect to buildable land, with respect to housing targets, things like that. I agree that the way it's written, I would love to see us to keep maybe some of the spirit of that. And maybe that's an addition to compatibility with surrounding land uses bullet point. But again, I don't have a brilliant idea and suggestion for an edit now, but something that perhaps I and we can take back.
Then you'll also see city attorney, she'll take note in 5 and 7, there's some wordsmithing. In section 2, paragraph 1, there's also, again, some wordsmithing. I think if you'll take a look at that and see if that's appropriate or how to state that. In section 4, at least in the community write-up presented, there's a strikeout of 2 sub-bullets. My understanding is the strikeout was felt that the wordage was redundant to other portions of the document. I don't mind redundancy on important points. So I'm okay with leaving those bullets in when we get to that section, just to further reinforce the issue. And again, the bullets are restated again, in section 5, kind of restate the bullets necessary, safety and emergency response, estimated cost, funding sources. And you'll see 5.5, just that any code changes. First, the planning commission and the council. I think that's just more elaboration. We have our process we do, and I think that's the process is just further elaborated there, as opposed to just rolling it up to code amendment changes to council. And I think that was the write-up presented. Again, the only, and it's a minor concern, is at no time are we not in compliance with the GMA.
Mhm.
We have the comp plan. I don't remember when we hit our housing targets from the county ever. They're always a bit excessive, but we at least give it a good try, and that's what GMA asks us to do.
But I think also, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think at least having it be part of the, during the moratorium, we take a look at, I think, obviously we're doing the comp plan amendments right now. And when we actually had a meeting with the consultant yesterday, we were walking through like audit of buildable lands, again, off of what you already did, but then like the new targets and where that might be. And the big kind of elephant or the big battery in the room was the the former, was the site,
We had
former
already
land that we had targeted, right? So
Potentially gone.
so I think understanding some of that, I think at least as it relates to like some of the research findings, less so about like compliance or costs and funding sources, but like how we are planning around that, I think is important. The other thing I want to point out, which I'm actually glad this points out, this stipulates, I like the fact that we're calling for it to go to planning commission for consideration. Again, that's part of our process anyway, but kind of spelling that out, I think makes some sense to me. And I think it's like, seems to fall in line with how other municipalities have tackled this, right? Sending to the planning commission, they have a work plan, they work through it, bring some proposal and recommendation to council when that's all said and done. So.
I think certainly these points that we've been discussing are some of the things that we'd like to bring forward at the next council meeting to discuss with the other council members so we can push the mayor's moratorium through with, you know, a little more specifics and, you know, maybe clarity and, you know, be able to do a combining of these ideas with and get the rest of the council's feedback and discussion and approval on that. But I think we were slated to try and do that at the next meeting. Yes,
Chair. So I think the plan would be that the lawyers will go and we'll sharpen our pencils and we'll look at this
just
and
read through it,
analyze
what,
it.
what your thoughts are on that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Bullet points of discussion or?
No, I thought we were pretty efficient in and tackling it. Yeah, I think again, I'll say it again on Tuesday. I think this is like a good addition to our the way in which we can weigh in, right, and provide express concern. It's a different way to do it, right? I think when we have discussion, and I'm guessing we'll have maybe a few people showing up on Tuesday, but I think having a good understanding of what this does, what this doesn't do, I think that is very important, right? And understanding, at least from my perspective, and other council members may have a different view of like kind of where this fits in the purpose of this, right? With respect to, again, building that body of concern to King County or whomever else. Yeah, I'm pleased. I'm satisfied with kind of our discussion today and the you know, the additions and things that we can bring before the full council next week.
And maybe we might be able to, you know, you talked about going forward when we are making our impactful statements, whether it be in person, letters, you know, whatever, that we can come up as a council group with the best course of impact, whether it's the whole council coming together, is it the whole council plus the various committees that are affected by things, you know, what you know, and kind of put our best foot forward as far as being there and making our thoughts heard, concerns.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes, sir.
And just be advised, due to OPMA, I've only had limited conversations, but my intent is out of FNA to kick off a working group between council and the citizens to draft another response to the permit review, trying to collect together as much of the material together in a joint letter to go out and handle any just additions going forward. I've at least talked it to the two FNA members, but want to further flesh that idea out in FNA, bring that to council next Tuesday. hopefully if they have it, I'll have it, at least sketched out and some membership identified for consideration. And so I do want to do more of the full court press than what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, sorry. I think that's great because I think there's a lot of expertise that we're kind of tapping into in a probably more ad hoc and informal way. And obviously we receive lots of emails of, but folks spending considerable amount of time kind of researching and with different ideas. And I think a lot of these ideas, like it'd be great if we could flesh them out a little more and understand like, hey, is there something to this, right? And I think part of it is like we have bandwidth constraints and we have other things going on and staff has bandwidth constraints similarly. But I would, on an issue like this, right, I want to make sure we have no stone unturned, right? If there's something that we can weigh in on, or if there's a viable pathway that protects our residents, we should be exploring everything. So I think the residents have tons of ideas here.
And definitely, we'll keep this on the recurring future items for discussion, topics of all of our various committee meetings.
Yeah, we won't be able to get away from it as much as we may like, but no.
All right, with that being said, any additional comments, gentlemen?
That was at least the intent of, I wanted, because we're not getting together until council next, wanted at least some council level discussion on this, because we really didn't get the opportunity last council meeting.
Mhm. All right. Well, and does anybody have any items for future discussion at this time?
I guess I do have another item. And that the aquatics group met a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
And there was some discussion of next steps moving forward in a collaborative manner between Snoqualmie, North Bend, Mount Si, eventually the county and state. Well, and honest to God truth, Jim, there was some discussion of. Who's Jim? Mayor, sorry. Some discussion of, well, let's start to relook, where the placement. So if we're headed that direction, is there support from administration to start talking about just a list of potential sites for a joint community pool? With at least, within the jurisdiction of Snoqualmie and potentially looky-loo outs, maybe we could pick some land out of King County. They're doing it to us, we can do it to them. Can we, as members of that working group, the council representatives for that group, get support?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question, but maybe this is helpful.
Mayor, will you make comment on that, please?
Yes, I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'll attempt to answer. It is my point of view that in order for a community pool to happen in the Upper Valley is the voters and taxpayers in the Upper Valley are going to have to come together on a single proposal. There's money that's available from the state, from the county, from participation by the school district, none of which will happen as long as there are two competing proposals in the Upper Valley. Much of the discussion for many years now has surrounded where the location would be. And while there are other issues, how would you fund it? My perspective is that all of those are solvable if we can find a location that the whole Upper Valley can agree on. And I think the biggest mistake we've made is trying to pick from existing sites. I think that portions of the community of the combined Upper Valley keep saying no to each other on sites. I think that the right way forward is to go to the combined community and ask them to figure out locations. I think any approach in which we attempt to limit their discussion to only certain sites is likely to get the same outcome as we've been having for years. So it's my point of view that a good process that has a chance of succeeding for our community is to go to the combined community and talk about how can the combined community find a way to settle on a site together? Now, not everyone's always going to agree, but we need a significant majority. Any funding for this is going to require a 60% vote. So we need, I think, a significant majority of the community to find a way to come together on a site. And I don't believe that a first step of telling them what sites they can pick from will be successful. So I strongly discourage that approach. I encourage us to get the community together, talk about, learn from the community, let the community hear each other, and work out a process of picking, if not where, then at least the criteria of how they would pick where. And this may take a whole number of steps, but we've got to, I think, come together as an Upper Valley community to pick where. Once we find out where and what drove us to the answer of where, we may find, exactly as Councilmember Holloway suggested, we may find that area is in unincorporated King County. It may be in the city of North Bend. It may be in the city of Snoqualmie, but let's find out what would work for our community that they could coalesce around. And then let's go find the property that works. So I discourage us from starting from a list of properties. Let's go the other path is my encouragement.
So at this stage, the criteria is just land of size to support such a facility, and that there are utilities there also to support. That is the only limitation or criteria is being discussed. Now, we can go and ask them an essay question, and I don't think that'll get us where, or we can go and say, here are all the pieces of property that at least initially are large enough to be within scope and have utilities to support such a facility reasonably, and have a discussion from there. North Bend and Skyview it should be a consolidated list, but at least I thought we would contribute from Snoqualmie in regards to that. And that was kind of the consensus of, I assume that's what you're calling the working group? Or are you talking a different group when you say working group?
Mayor Mayhew.
Yeah, I didn't use the term working group. I used the term our community, our Upper Valley community. So again, I think continuing to try to tell the community what they can pick from, I believe is a losing approach and not one that I will support. I think finding a way to engage with our community, listen to them, help them hear each other and find where they can coalesce around, and then going to work to find places. Another thing I'd add in is many of the places we might identify are currently owned by people. They may or may not like to have their properties named in that way. They may or may not, I mean, there's any sort of number of things, but I just think that any attempt to restrict the community, I think we've got to go back to the community and listen to them, help them think through, as you've just said in your own comments, well, you need to think about places that would have, sorry, I didn't, I don't know if you referred to water, utilities, yeah. You might
Get water to it. Otherwise, it's just a big pot.
can't swim without water. But there's much more to that. How would traffic get there? How would parking get there? There's just a lot to that discussion. And until I think the community has heard each other out on those, I don't think we have a good path. I have spoken to not, I have spoken to, let me try again. I have expressed this point of view to the Skyview Parks District, representatives of the Skyview Park District, and I thought received a very favorable response that yes, that's probably the right way to go. Now, I don't think any one person can speak for the entire Skyview Park District. They have different views on their board of commissioners, I believe they're called. I think there's different views of folks that are very involved with, in addition to Skyview Parks. So I just think there's a lot of constituents here that all have different points of view, but that just further makes me believe that even those that are heavily involved have not yet found sort of common ground. I think we've got to do that before we start picking sites and getting that far, or I just don't think we'll succeed.
So when you say community, is that something different than the aquatics? I can't remember the full name. The
Collaborative.
Aquatics Collaborative Group.
Mayor.
So I think that you're referring to a group that was sponsored by the Skyview Parks District. So that has membership from a whole number of organizations.
Including 2 council members from Snoqualmie.
Right, yes. Although not for most of their time that they were together. They spent almost all of their time in a very frustrated state because Snoqualmie did not turn up for years. And they worked with what they had, and they came to a conclusion of, which path to go. And they were building off of the information they had that was done in support of prior efforts they'd gone out to the community with. I think that when we talk to them about a different way of approaching this, that they're going to be, look, all of those folks want a pool to happen in the Upper Valley. I think our residents of the Upper Valley and of the city of Snoqualmie want something to happen. They want us to find a way to do this together. And so I think that we've got to start at the beginning, which is how do we decide where? I think that's the toughest decision. And we've got to find and create and help our community get to a consensus on where to go. Then I think going and finding the places and figuring out what to build becomes a much easier task. I think we can do that part if we can come together and find a way to come together on where. So I think the right answer is listening sessions. Yes, talking to the community about what are the restrictions, some of which you yourself mentioned just a few minutes ago. Here's kind of the things we have to take into account, but let's figure out what the community prioritizes. Let them hear from each other and find a way to find consensus amongst the whole Upper Valley community. We've got to do that first. Then it's time to start finding locations that fit the criteria they've made.
Councilmember Holloway, any?
No, next time we have a meeting, I'll let them know that Snoqualmie administration is unsupportive of the request. Has a plan they want to execute to do. I don't know that it involves the Aquatics Collaborative. And then eventually council may need to make a decision. If we're not enabled to actually participate with the group effectively, how is our time spent? The administration has a plan.
Well, if there's no additional topics of discussion, then I'd like to hear a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.